All right. So Kai meet Patrick. Patrick meet Kai. Kai does Legal Shield, right? And then we did it before, and then I went through a little battle, not a battle, a little issue with my marriage, and
Oh,
we
yeah.
cut costs down. And I'll be coming back to you here pretty soon. But yeah, I wanted to. Patrick is a financial advisor. I'm a real estate broker, and we talk to everybody about financial intelligence and why it's smart to do certain things. And the reason we wanted you on this, by the way, Patrick, the way I met Kai physically the first time ever was with my cousin John, who we've
John.
interviewed, our banker buddy. He invited us to come and visit with an FBI fraud squad to talk about what's going on that. But
I did not know your brother was there. That's funny.
he's my cousin. Yeah, John. He's the little Filipino guy that was talking there.
Oh, wow. Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
I think I don't know how
I
you.
mean, they look related, don't they?
Yeah.
We just yeah. Patrick just found out I was Filipino.
Yeah. My husband's Filipino and El Salvadorian.
Cool.
There you go. Sometimes
And
he looks more Middle Eastern, though.
Deering, what nationality is Deering?
So I did not take his name because his last name is the El Salvadorian side. So it's Paniagua, and I couldn't even spell it. So I'm like, are you? That was 21 years ago. And he's like, yeah, no, I don't care. I
Not
kept
good.
my name.
You imagine having to grow up with like, how do you spell it? Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll just keep it. Plus, I'd already been established in business because I've been with LegalShield for 24 years in December.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, well, I'm kind of already established. I don't, unless you want to take mine. And he was like, no. And so we were just like, we're fine.
One of my best friends took his wife, now ex-wife's name.
I've seen it happen for sure.
And now
Different.
they're divorced and he keeps her name.
That's so interesting. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we'll leave my opinion off of the air. All right. So where do you want to start? What do you want to do? What do you want, like, do you want to go through and talk about what you do and where, yeah, why don't you do that?
So I just want to know, are we actually doing the podcast right now? Is that we're going to
Yeah.
piece it together? Okay, I gotcha. And are you guys going to ask me questions or you just, I mean, I do a lot of them and they're all kind of different. That like I'm doing one and I gave them 8 questions to ask me. I have one on Saturday. And so I don't know what you want.
I can send you the 8 questions, but I see you on Facebook doing stand-up talks and interviews and all sorts of stuff. And I know you're very, very out there. That's what you do, right? And maybe break it down and tell us about where you started 24 years ago, why you chose this, that kind of.
Yeah, I think it's always interesting how people get started in their professions. And ironically, I was a corporate girl and everything was great until it wasn't. I thought I was killing the game. And then, my name was on some executive boardroom's dry erase board with a circle and a line through it. And I got fired. I was completely shocked. And I got fired, they said, for insubordination. And I had to
Oh,
look
wow.
it up. Yeah, because I didn't even know what that meant at the time. And it meant I had a problem with authority. And I literally laughed out loud. I was like, yeah, that's probably about right. So I'm a really good worker. I was her top producer. But I just don't like being told what to do. So I kind of just reevaluated life as we do often and said, you know what, I'd rather, if I'm going to be, I was 100% commission sales at the time, W-2 employee. And I said, well, if I'm going to be 100% commission, I'm just going to do my own thing. So I had a couple of failed ventures. It wasn't as easy as I thought to do my own thing. I had to build the airplane while it was in the air. And I had, like I said, tried a few things. And then I ended up in health insurance and I did okay. It just didn't make my heart sing. I wasn't excited about it. We were first to the market with an HSA, which is a high deductible plan. So we layered it with a lot of things. And one of the things we layered it with was a legal plan because statistically they had less likelihood of using their health insurance, having workers' comp issue because they were not stressed out. They had access to attorneys. And I was already a member because my last corporate America job, they offered it as one of their voluntary benefits. And I actually took it when I left because it was portable. And then when I opened up a traditional brick and mortar with employees, overhead paperwork, the whole 9 yards, I bought their small business plan and it saved my bacon on a lot of things. And so when a client asked, hey, do you guys offer legal plans? It was a perfect fit for what we were doing. So I started offering it in conjunction with some of my other ancillary benefits with my health insurance clients, going into companies and offering the small business product and the personal plans to the employees. And then within a handful of years, I'm, why am I banging heads with another 3,000 health insurance agents just right here in Silicon Valley? And it's at the time it was, I'm going to date myself, but it was Obamacare, and you're really at the whim of the government. And I don't like businesses where I have potentially opportunities to lose money or be out of business just because of somebody voting on something. And so I decided that I sold that business to the 401k guy, signed in on compete, and went to work with Legal Shield on a full-time basis after that. and I started working from home. So I had none of that overhead and all the paperwork, no underwriting, no licensing. I could write it anywhere. It was guaranteed issue. And it was like the perfect business model with all the residuals I was looking for, but not all the headaches. And that's really how I transitioned and was able, and that's been 2 decades ago now. This has been my only source of income, empowering people legally. And I can't think of anything more noble. I'm kind of a hippy dippy. I went to college in Eugene and have a sociology degree and a women's studies minor. And
Are you
so, yeah, go. And so
yeah,
it allowed me the opportunity to be able have that social justice aspect that I liked and I loved in my college days, but to be able to do it professionally now too, giving people access to their rights sometimes for the very first time. Yeah.
that is pretty
Cool.
amazing. So what are some of the things that you've used Legal Shield for?
I'm not a
What you
criminal.
want to talk about?
Yeah, no, and it's funny because people go, I would never need a legal plan. I'm not a criminal. And I go, what? What does that have to do with anything? I'm like, my mother passed away without her estate planning instruments and I had a legal situation. It didn't mean I was a criminal. So I've used the services prior to, I was referring it for free. Prior to getting involved, I had used it for $300 on a medical bill, $1,200 on a deposit. I had gotten my will done. And then in the business side of it, I had an employee try to steal my clients. And it didn't really stand up in court here, but they wrote a scary letter and they stopped, trying to pick off my clients. I used it recently when an insurance company tried to lowball me. I wasn't even in the same city when they crashed into my camper van and ruined my fun times. And I thought I'd get an extra 7,000, but because I had access to an attorney helping me ghostwrite a letter, I got an extra 10. So I got an extra $17,000 because I
Wow.
had access to an attorney. And when our programs range from $30 a month on up, I mean, one use, you probably paid for it for a decade, especially if you got your will done. One of our programs, you can do a trust. If you did just a will for free for two, we cover the member and the spouse, at least where we live, about $2,400. You paid for that thing for a decade. So yes, there's a cost for having it, but I'm going to argue there's a cost for not having it. How many times have we taken those little tiny irritants and just yelped somebody about it because it stunk? And we didn't get the justice we deserved, but it made us feel better. But it didn't really move the needle because we're just the little guy going up against these big companies, whether it's the airlines, whether it's the insurance company, whether it's the landlord, the visa company. I mean, who knows who you're going up against? And so it really does level that legal playing field where, trivial to traumatic, it doesn't really matter. We can access and it doesn't cost us, our firstborn, their college, education and stuff. So that's why I love it. And yeah, so it's probably saved me in just hard cold cash over the 24 years about $75,000, but it's hard to put a price tag on like Vito, how do you hold title? Well, you're a realtor. You can't give legal advice. So I was able to call my attorney, find out how to hold title. Those types of questions that we'll Google. And I'm sorry, you can put it through AI. It just doesn't mean that it's always right because the law is not always logical.
That's right.
Nor is it written correctly for each state and jurisdiction. Yeah.
Correct.
And here's the thing, right? We're in contract to sell our last duplex, but I owned 6 or 7 duplexes. One of them burnt down 3 months to the day that I closed on it. Luckily, nothing legal happened from that because the tenant actually started it. Nobody got hurt, which, thank God, but we got our money back. No questions asked. And then I want to say a couple 6 months into it, or a couple 6 years into it, the sewer backed up. It was the fault of the city, but they were claiming it was my responsibility. The sewer backed up underneath the duplex and all of a sudden came to me. So we went to LegalShield and said, hey, what do we do? And they said, we'll write this letter, make sure you're good. The tenants, we want money. I feel sick, obviously, because they're smelling backed up sewer vapor. And so we wrote, and it just helped. It helped. I mean, it helped. And it didn't cost us anything for the letter to be written. And the tenant went away, luckily. We gave them some money for clothes or what have you, so they can be put into a hotel until we took care of that matter. And then, obviously the cost of having to clean up the sewer underneath, which I feel sorry for that guy that did it. But anyway, it's kind of like insurance.
Yeah. Except for usually when you're using insurance, it means something bad has to happen, right? So, here you could be advancing in life. Maybe you're adopting a child, getting married. Maybe you want a prenup, a postnup. These are things that are everyday things that happen to us. So I'm so glad we were able to help you. I really love our business plans because they help a lot of people. But at the end of the day, I mean, the wealthy wouldn't do anything without having a contract reviewed by an attorney. They wouldn't sign it. I mean, I don't even think they'd sign a birthday card, right? Unless their attorneys are. So, but we as everyday middle income Americans, we just are like, yeah, I mean, I read it. It looks good to me.
Yep.
And they sign it and then they get into trouble. And so that's where I really feel passionate that we live in the freest country in the world, but how free are you if you don't have access to the, system that governs you? And that's why, we ended up like in the mortgage meltdown, right? People didn't know what they were signing, didn't have counsel, but we give that same power back to the people for literally as little as $1 a day. And I love that you mentioned the business plans because I think, when you look at the statistics on small business owners, that, you always talk about the big companies, but the mid-sized little companies are the ones that employ 80% of the people. And we're literally one legal situation from going out of business. So we are really good in difficult times, like during the pandemic. I thought all my small business owners that had brick and mortars would cancel their program because they're not open. But they were like, no, you were the only thing that helped me know, am I open? Am I not open? Can I ask people if they're sick? What if I have to get out of my lease agreement? How is that going to work? What if I stop paying? I have a franchise. What if I have to get out of that? So, I think my thing makes all the other insurances work well because if your auto insurance doesn't pay, your business insurance doesn't pay, your whatever, who are you going to have to call?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I always say to people, okay, so we pay our bills, like our mortgage, we pay our, utility bills, we pay, our payroll, whatever, and they all have attorneys, right?
That's
And
right.
how do they pay for their attorneys?
through our
Us.
mortgage. Yeah, through us.
And then when they use the attorneys, who do they use them against? Us. So shouldn't we have our own attorneys to really make sure that we're not going to get taken advantage of and treated unfairly out there? So yes, you're going to use it in emergencies, but you should use it for everyday things that happen, just to make sure you're doing it right.
Yeah.
Yep. While you were talking, I was like, I write purchase contracts and listing agreements and all this stuff. And every time I tell them, I sit in front of them, I go, this is a blank copy of it. You have the legal right to take this to a lawyer and have them digest it for you. Because I can't give you legal advice.
People
In
do
my
that.
head right now, I'm like, hey, I should just tell them, go talk to LegalShield. Here's a coupon, go talk to Kai, make it happen, right? Because it's spending 30, 40 minutes having somebody have you understand what the ramifications or what the could be or what have you happens on a purchase contract is huge. It's hugely important. And I can't give you that advice because I'm not a licensed attorney and I'm not a licensed tax advisor. So I can't give that kind of advice either. I can say, here are the questions you should ask, go talk to your tax person. But I can't even do with a lawyer. I can't say, hey, these are questions you should ask. I can't tell you anything about it. This is a legal contract. Go talk to a lawyer. None of them do.
The other thing I was thinking as you guys were talking was like, I mean, culturally, like the middle class using lawyers is just not something that they're conditioned to do or conditioned to do. It's something you see on TV. It's something you see in movies. It's something for wealthy people have that law firm that represents the family kind of thing. And if we have to get a lawyer, it's because something bad as somebody's going to jail or something like that. That's when a lawyer comes into play. And nowadays, though, people's financial lives are just so much more complicated than what it was 20, 30, or 40 years ago. Things are much more complicated now for people. And I could definitely see how, of course, like having some kind of legal asset that you can draw upon to give you some feedback about a decision you needed to make or not make is critical. I was going to ask you, Kai,
But you made me think of something too. It's actually a paradigm shift, right? So like the wealthy, they'll say, "Hey, listen, this is this guy's card. If you ever get into trouble, call this person, they'll help you out." We say, hey, here's our attorney's card. Never call it in case you need it in an absolute emergency. Here's the attorney that I know. And we're changing that. So that's a real shift. Like that in 20 years, I imagine that most people are going to be like, oh, did you call your attorney on that? What, you don't have LegalShield? Like, I can't believe it. So I think it's going to be interesting to see in the next, handful of years how that all plays out. So
that's it. That's right. I think you described it even better than I could. It is kind of a paradigm shift around how you approach legal services. And it should be like a automatic thing as opposed to like a last resort. I hope I can afford it thing because I think people probably just don't understand how affordable it can be. And ignorance is bliss, like they say. It's also really expensive, and so don't be ignorant. Don't go make a decision if you don't have to.
The question, so that's the reason, Kai. This is the reason why we started financial intelligence because I know lawyers, I know bankers, I know Patrick, financial advice, I know me. I know lenders, I know all these different people, and nobody's really talking about all these different ways we're intertwined and how to break down the silos of things. Because, I know a lot about real estate and you know a lot about legal, and Patrick knows a lot about financial advising and how to invest money and make it grow, which I have my money with him and his account with me or my account with him continues to grow, right? So I ask questions, I ask dumb questions so that people that are afraid to ask those dumb questions would ask them, or wouldn't, they'll listen to it. Hopefully they'll learn something. But the thing is, our culture from mid-income all the way down, we just don't ask those questions. It's almost like verboten. You don't talk about it with your family. You don't talk about structuring budgets and how to not live paycheck to paycheck and put away and make an investment and do this and take a little bit of risk, because you need to have risk in life, but you have to have smart risk, right? So anyway, going back to the legal thing, that's mitigating the risk too.
Mitigating, just peace of mind. I think that's really cool. A middle class option for people to be able to reach out and get some affordable legal advice, where I think most people are really scared to try and get it.
Yeah, because they don't know how much it's going to cost.
Right. Or they assume it's going to cost a lot. And they have some reason to assume that, because it can, right? It can. And if you seek it out in an ineffective way, it can be very expensive.
And there's a huge gap. Like I think you were alluding to, Vito, like there's the people, the haves, right, that can afford it and they know it and they're smart about it and they have all these access to resources. And then there's the ones that are, below broke, and they're going to get, a public defender in case it's a criminal charge, and they're going to get some public assistance for other things. But it's everybody else in between, right, that needs information like what you're sharing on this podcast, needs, a LegalShield plan, needs access to those things, because it gets more and more complicated every single day. And quite frankly, with our civil liberties and our civil rights being chipped away a little bit every single day, people need access now more than ever.
Sure.
If you're enacting your First Amendment rights and protesting or something, you may need access to an attorney, and 24/7 too, we give access. And I could tell you, even Oprah Winfrey's not going to have an attorney that would get up at 3 a.m. and answer a phone call. We have 24/7 access to attorneys in case of emergencies, arrested, detained, not sure what to do. It's pretty amazing.
Kind of see if I can put you on the spot a little bit.
Sure.
See how quick you can. Let me see if I can give you a scenario. You can tell me like how many different ways the LegalShield could probably support a family.
Oh, I'm looking at it on the website right now.
Very nice. Let's say I'm thinking of some of the families that I work with and some of the scenarios that come across. I'm trying to put a few together. Say it's a husband and wife, 2 kids. One kid is special needs, 5 years old. They're thinking about putting some kind of accounts together to legally protect the special needs child. Mom has a elderly parent who is getting older and is starting to need support in other ways. And, the parent has a home, has assets, and they don't know where anything's at really. And so they're trying to figure out, what's the next steps there they got to do with mom and dad before they start to go into a home or something like that. They don't know. They just know it's coming. They just bought a home themselves. And so now, they're thinking about all the things they have to pay. But my guess is, or my experience tells me, there's also a legal side to all this that they should probably need to take a look at too. How would you respond?
Yeah, well, they definitely need a legal plan. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We do have a good, better, best business model when it comes to our personal plan. So sounds like they would need a personal plan. And the $49 is our premium plan, and that would include a revocable trust. Yeah. So then it's got a $250 copay with that. So, we can't do everything for free for $30 to $49, but we do the unlimited consultation, document review, letters, phone calls, and wills, attorney healthcare directives for free. But if they talk to their law firm and talk to their estate planning attorney and say, hey, you know what, the trust would be, the more appropriate instrument, we can help them out with that and save a lot of money. Worst case scenario, they need a real specialty trust, because a lot of times special needs kids are going to need a special needs trust for their children. We would do that at a 25% discounted rate, and I've never seen an attorney on sale. So if that's $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000, we would do that at a 25% discounted rate. And then with that mother, they would need to have their own membership, because they might want to put together a general power of attorney, a healthcare directive as well, to make sure that they can make decisions on their behalf. And they also might have questions about downsizing, transitioning into a senior living place, and have those contracts and documents reviewed.
Right.
So that's why that parent needs to get it done, because once there's any kind of an issue with dementia or Alzheimer's, we're not able to do anything now, because they wouldn't be able to sign off on that. So it gets really tricky at that point. But yeah, there's so many different ways that, from estate planning to family law. It was interesting. I had a member who had 2 kids, one with special needs. They were going to the same school, and they wouldn't let the special needs kid ride on the same bus as the older kid. Well, it was creating quite a bit of a problem, because it really needed to be with his brother on the bus, and they wouldn't let him. Well, one letter from their law firm, they were able to put the special needs kid on the bus with his brother, and literally everything was fine. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes it's a motivational letter that is required to make people just do the right thing when no one's looking. I mean, I love helping
Yeah.
people like that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Even just any one of those trusts could cost a lot of money to put together. All of a sudden, if you're not like prepared for it, and doing it when you're not doing it at the last minute when it's urgent is never like the right way to do it.
No, and I tease people, I say, just because you do your will or your trust or whatever you're going to do, it doesn't mean you're going to die. Because I think there's like this thing, like if I do it, and it's smart. My mother passed away without one, and it was out of state. And she didn't have a ton of assets. She lived in a trailer park and, worked at fast food and had a little car, but she was a member, never got around to getting her will done. And a simple will would have done it. And so it created a lot of havoc for me. I got a great referral attorney. All of our attorneys averaged 20 years of experience. And this was 8 years ago, November, instead of 2000, because it was super simple, I got charged my 25% discount. It was $1,500. And he was awesome. Like he knew the mobile home park and how dirty they were because they filed abandonment paperwork on me because I wasn't on the title. And I had 45 days during the holidays to prove who I was, or they were going to commandeer the trailer.
Wow.
Pretty dirty. And that 24/7 access was very helpful because I was going to go up there. I had an appointment from California to Oregon to go meet with that probate attorney and bring him all the paperwork. Well, all the paperwork I needed to prove who I was in the trailer. And the neighbor lady said at like 11 o'clock at night, they padlocked the door. Kai, you're not going to be able to get in. And I was
Wow.
beside myself. I was going to get there at 8 a.m. I was going to grab the paperwork, go to the attorney's office. And I realized that I had 24/7 access to an attorney. So I called my law firm and they said, do you know you could call the sheriff? I said, I had no idea. So I called the sheriff. I told the sheriff what was going on. He said, let me get back to you. So now it's about midnight. I'm still leaving in the morning. He comes back and he says, well, I went to that manager's office at the trailer park, knocked on her door with my flash. Loved that. Can you just see it? Bang, bang, bang. And he said, I let her know that if the padlock was not off the door by the time you got there, that I was going to give you my personal cell phone number and I would cite and arrest her at the scene. So guess what was off the door by the time I got? I get goosebumps when I think about that because it wasn't about the stuff. It wasn't about the trailers, but the stuff inside the trailer, right? So I ended up with my mom's wedding ring, my grandpa's wedding ring, and all these pictures. The trailer wasn't worth anything. It was a 70s trailer, but it was the fact that I wanted the stuff in there. And the neighbor lady had passed away, and the kids had lost their house because they did the same thing to them. And they didn't have the money, the time, the LegalShield, right? To be able to go fight them and get that stuff. And so I just went Aaron Brockovich on them. I'm like, because I had money and time and LegalShield. So you just never know when something's going to happen, the unexpected. And it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just the trust work, like having a living trust or family trust, like these basic things, which I think there's more education on that stuff now than there used to be 20, 30 years ago, especially with the internet and everything. And those things cost money to do. And why not do it somewhere where you can bundle these things and get significant savings? So I'm guessing that living trust and family trust, or is that also something you guys help with?
So we would do that either at a 25% discount, like I said, depending on what plan they were on, or we'll do a revocable trust on our premium plan for a $250 copay. So not
Yes.
everything's free, all included in the membership. So if it goes beyond the letters, phone calls, consultation, like we'll do after 180 days, uncontested divorces, adoptions, separations, name changes, annulments, postnups, prenups. But if there's a messy divorce, right? For $1 a day, we can't do that for free. So we would give the 25% discounted rate. They would contract with those attorneys and work with them. But I think you get so much value because think about how much paperwork and stuff and how much questions and things you could get answered before you actually had to hire one, whether it's immigrations, right? Ask your questions, you're eventually going to have to hire one, but you can get pretty far and save a lot of money because you're going to have all that free advice and stuff until you get to that point where you're just going to have to hire one.
Incorporating, starting a business, understanding what legal structure you should do.
That was going to be my next question is how that works on the business side. Because you have business plan, like how does that? So we have running the scenario again, like why would somebody get that and how would they start using it?
So it's the same concept. We have a good, better, best business model. So it depends on if they're in state, out of state, how many users they want to have. If they're worried about being sued, we have some lawsuit protection on there. It's 100 hours that they can get in case they're frivolously sued. That's incredible. And like I said, a lot of the small business owners that I have written this plan for have used it. And, I have gyms, restaurants, a parts store, things like that. So you would think, gosh, the parts store, how are they ever going to get sued? Well, it was one of those EA frivolous lawsuits, right? So, we just don't know. And I think that there's a target on the back of a business owner because they think they make all this money and they don't know that a lot of times my poor business owner's burn rate is $10,000, $20,000 a month. They're barely paying themselves.
Yeah.
And so I just love.
Oftentimes with small and medium-sized businesses, their margin is about 10 to 15%. So it's not like they get their Mr. Money bags, right?
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out how to make it work and live their American dream. And that's the thing. You said 80% of the businesses come from small business, and just the margin itself and it's hard because if you got a lawsuit and you are cracking out 15% margin on that. That's your profit, in case you don't know what that is. You're out of business. You are broke. You're bankrupt.
Yeah.
And that is true. And that's why I say when we started this conversation, my small business owners are one legal situation from going out of business.
Yeah.
And so I have a moral obligation, in my opinion, to one, show it to everybody so they know there's a better way. But number two, my favorite businesses, my favorite restaurants, I want them to stay in business so I can keep eating there, frequenting my gyms and things like that. So I feel like I just, I'm not trying to sell them. I educate them. So I'll hand them my card and be like, hey, if I can ever be of help to you, you can basically put us on retainer for under $200 a month. And that way, if you got nothing more than consultation, you got your money's worth. But we do a lot more. And so I'm really, really proud of that business plan. So there are some other companies that can offer legal plans to employees as a voluntary benefit, but no one can do it on a personal level. And no one has been able to figure out how to price point it to small business owners, because that's our highest retention. I mean, 90% retention on those services, because they should be talking to attorneys and they're not. They're Googling it. They're chat GPTing contracts. They're asking friends like, hey, what did you do when this happened to you? Because like you said, they're so lean, they don't have $500 to $1,000 an hour to fork out just to find out, what should be the best move. So yes, like incorporating. So I got incorporated with LegalShield for $450. It wasn't free, but it was great. I got advice. I got consultation. That didn't cost me anything. They said, check with your CPA. I did. They agreed with the attorney, the structure that I needed. I went back to them and asked them to incorporate me, and they did. And it was like a one and done. So if I was a do-it-yourselfer, I could have done it for free. They would have told me and helped me walk through the process. But I'm like, if I'm a physician, I could probably take out my own appendix, but why would I do that? That doesn't make sense.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let the experts kind of do some of that work for you.
Yeah.
The business plans are no brainers. Yeah, they just don't know.
Yeah.
We got to educate them.
The thing is, it's like right now, my daughters were in band, and the band every year, they're graduated, they're off at college now, but the high school is coming back to me and asking me for a donation, put my name in the, little sponsor thing or whatever. The mindset of these small business owners, a lot of them are like, I can't afford it this year. I just can't afford. I can't afford $300 to sponsor a school.
Yep.
And in my head, it's like, how can you not afford to sponsor a school and put your name in there and put goodwill out there? It's the same mindset of our culture of mid and low income people, where they just don't talk about money. How can you not talk about money? How can you not share ideas? I listen to my friends who are on the left and to the right, and they tell me how bad Trump is and how great Trump is and all this other stuff. And I want to hear what they have to say. But when it comes to money, nothing. Nobody understands how to have that conversation unless they're wealthy. And it's the same thing with the legal mindset and having a trust. If you own a house, you should have a trust, period. And that's the whole reason why we started this thing, is just to have conversations so we can throw it out there and have people get intelligent, or at least get a little smarter about what's going on.
Yeah, even just the trust for a property for a family alone, based on what you shared, Kai. I mean, that pays for the service itself on the personal level. I think I've shared the story before, but my grandmother, when she passed away, her home in Los Angeles had been paid off for years, but they didn't have anything in place. And now this is 2004, and so in 2004 money, it was like $18,000 to go through probate, when there was nothing owed to anybody, but just still had to go through that process. It didn't matter. And that was $18,000 in 2004 for a very clean, very simple, nothing going on, but had to go through probate, and that's what the cost was.
Well, they got off lucky, because sometimes they take 40-50% of the value of the estate.
Wow.
If you're in probate, if you die intestate, you can lose tons of money. And I'm not saying that to, scare people.
No, for sure. It's absolutely possible.
22 years ago, when I first got in this business, I did a little deep dive and I sampled all these different homes, because I can see the title and who owns it. Only 5% of the people who owned a house at that time, this is 20 years ago, I haven't done it since, 5% had their house registered as under their trust. 5%. That means 95% of the people, if they died today, they would die and have to go through probate.
Yeah. I mean, there's some staggering statistics. It's like 80% of people either don't have one or it's not updated. And I don't like to insult people either. So when I ask them about sensitive questions, I'm like, when was the last time you updated your estate planning instruments? And then inevitably they say, I don't have one. So I don't want to, even though statistically they don't have it, I don't want to say that. So I think there's some sensitivity around it. I think there's, some superstition around it. I think there's, I'm going to live forever around it.
Yeah,
And I get it. You don't want to face into, what does it look like after? But we all saw, life tomorrow is not promised,
that's right.
It's just being smart. You don't want to leave. I say it's the last love letter that you're going to leave your family.
Oh, that's great. I like that's good.
Yeah, and they'll also tell you if you don't have an estate plan, the state has one for you and you may not like it.
Yeah.
If you have minor children, there has been some horrible stories. So I have one of my associates who showed it to a relative of theirs, and he was a stay-at-home dad, and the mother was the breadwinner, went to work one day and didn't come home, had a terrible car accident, two little kids, and he thought for sure she didn't have her will done that he would keep the kids. Well, her parents fought him for custody, saying he was an unfit parent because he didn't have income coming in, and they won.
Wow.
So, I get goosebumps again when I think about that. Like if they had just had a simple will, yes, it would have been better than nothing, but that guardianship is really important. And when you have teenage kids like Vito does that are in college, you need to get a power of attorney because if anything were to happen to them, you can't
Yeah.
make decisions for those children, even though you're paying for their college, even though they're dependent on you
Yeah.
because they're over the age of 18. I mean, I just had a gal who's, had a little accident. Her kid was on a bike and got hit and at college. And she was like, yeah, I couldn't get any information.
Yep. As a matter of fact, when your child turns 18, you cannot make medical decisions for them. So you have to take them to a lawyer,
That's what I'm
probably
saying.
costs a
Your
couple
medical
hundred
director.
bucks, and you say end of life decisions or whatever. If I get in a coma or this is what I
Yeah.
want to have happen. It's not your decision anymore. It's your
Right.
adult child's decision. They have to go and tell the lawyer how to fill that out. And that's what LegalShield does, right? I mean,
Correct. I mean, and that would be free or nominal cost, like $20 to get that done for those adult children, because we do cover kids living at home up to the age of 26, never married, full-time college students also up to the age of 26, never married. So they can have access to those services as well. But yeah, they need that medical director. They need that power of attorney.
so I am your perfect demographic because
Mhm.
we had it. Jill's mom died 7 days after her grandfather died. Both of them had
Oh,
dementia.
wow.
She had early onset Alzheimer's, and this was like 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I freaked out. I started looking around. I got myself a trust before we knew you, and we had this trust done. And Percy, the grandfather, had a trust. He had everything written out exactly how he wanted things handled. He had a mobile home, he had cash, he had gold, he had all this other stuff. She took care of everything. Donna, the mother, she died. She was 56, 57, like my age right now. She had dementia and early onset Alzheimer's. They were so unprotected. It didn't ruin them financially. It hurt them horribly badly. And I think he finally, once Donna died, Dave started making roads back. But I mean, it's just such a financial offset that
Yeah.
it's imagine being young and your husband goes to war and he gets killed, God forbid, but that happens, right? That cloud of war, that fog that goes over your brain, and I don't know what to do. Who do I go to? What do I do?
Yeah.
That's what a trust does. It helps you say, this is what I want you to do after I die with my stuff, with the kids, with the dogs, with everything. And it's imperative because we're dying every day. I mean, within 18 months, I had 6 people I knew die.
Holy cow.
I just had a business partner, 49 years old. I just hung out with him, had lunch the other day, and I'm like, you just don't know. And I'm glad you also, first of all, I'm sorry you went through that. That's terrible. But, I think people often forget about their pets because every time I'll see something on next door that says, hey, so and so, old lady passed away. Her pets are going to go to the Humane Society. Do you want them? It's just like, so, you want to make sure you set aside some money and find out who's going to be taking care of those so that they have enough funds to take care of your pet and make sure they know they're going to get your pet. So there's a lot of conversations that need to happen surrounding estate planning. And what's great is we have a will questionnaire. And so our members, if they just do the simple will, they fill that out. They send it to their law firm. Their law firm calls them, asks them a lot of questions. They help draft them. Sometimes they're up to 30 pages because you can have lots of kids and lots of assets and put, certain things in certain places. And then within about 10 days, they get it drafted. It gets mailed back to them, hard copy. They need to do a couple of things. Number one, they need to make sure they get it notarized. And then number two is they need to put it in a safety deposit box. And number three is they need to make copies of it and tell people where it is. Because if you pass away and nobody knows where it is, which is what happened to a friend of mine in May. So he said, oh yeah, I got it done with LegalShield. I got my will done. And we could not find it. And it went to his brother. And he had said to me before, like, my brother's irresponsible with money. I want to make sure the kids get it, that he doesn't get it. So the brother's kids. But because we couldn't find anything, it went all to the brother. So, it's not just enough to do it. You've got to make sure it's readily available if somebody needs it too, to be able to execute it. So
You got to know where to get it at. Yeah. I mean, what's the point of doing it if nobody can get to it?
yeah.
And I think going back to what you were saying about the paradigm shift, I think a lot of middle class families, they hear this estate planning thing. It just sounds like something. It's not something that they need to do. Estate. I don't have an estate. I got this house here, or I got this condo. People don't really equivalent estate planning with their situation. They think that's for other people in higher tax brackets with other problems, and it's not them. And that's not the case at all. Everybody can greatly benefit from estate planning. And let's not get it twisted. It's not like the rich take care of their business either. I think it was Michael Jackson and Prince, the main to name some famous folks who didn't have their stuff together when they passed away. And it's been a problem. And so it's not just
No,
something
for sure. And there's lots of kids coming out of the woodwork, I guess, for Princess stuff. So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's more pronounced in middle income Americans, but it certainly happens at all socioeconomical levels because, it is something people don't like to face into, and you've got to make decisions, right? And like I said, if you don't make those, the state will, and you just may not like it.
yeah.
That's how it's going to blow out for you and your family and your loved ones. So just like I said, it's that last love letter you're going to leave to the family. And I've seen people break up. I'm not kidding, because it's such a traumatic time over like a gun collection, a China collection. I'm like, that would have been so easily solvable, let alone if there was no medical directive. So we had a situation where that wasn't in place, and the two brothers fought about, do we, keep them on life support? Do we not? And they to this day aren't speaking because neither one of them could agree. So the only person whose opinion mattered was the one who couldn't talk.
Yeah.
I've seen where two sisters are fighting it out so bad, and this happened to me. Was my assistant back when I was in publishing. My assistant's sister was treating my assistant so horribly that she committed suicide.
Holy cow. Oh my gosh.
She jumped into a closet, got a charcoal briquette thingy, and lit it on fire and asphyxiated herself.
Oh my
Yep.
goodness.
Because it was just mental anguish over the probate and the estate of their mother. And it was like the most horrible thing that I've ever seen. And how could somebody treat somebody that? And it happens. It happens over and over and over again. And it just happened a couple of years ago. I sold a house. Brother was the trustee. Mother had cancer. She passed away. Before she passed away, the sister came in under duress. The mother was on drugs, on pain pills, etc. Forced her to add her to the trust as trustee, as co-trustee. And then there was a long legal battle because of it. And there's nothing you can do to protect that. So you have to understand what the legal ramifications are. And they just settled it out, I want to say like February.
Wow, barely.
Yeah. And I was stuck in the middle because I had to sell the house. And I was like, I'm not playing favorites. I can't play favorites. But you go talk to your lawyer, you tell me what happens after you figure it out. But they were like trying to get me sucked in, and well, he said this and you should. I'm like, I'm not doing any of that. I'm not going to play your stupid games.
Yeah, it's emotional time for sure. And when somebody's, in hurting like that, they don't always make the best decision. So it's better to help them, leave those decisions, help them.
I'm going to say most of our conversations talk about a lot of these bigger life events that happen, which is like, it's huge if you don't have great legal protection or things set up correctly. But I think one thing you talked about at the beginning that I don't want to gloss over, I think is really cool, and I know we're kind of running out a little bit of time here, is just having the asset to call on a document to get some feedback, got a legal question. Like, that's huge, man. For most people, just to be able to know they have something they can call, they have the service they're paying for. And so, I would imagine most people are like, well, I need to use this because I'm paying for it, right? And I bet the value is just ginormous once you start to get to figure out how helpful that could be anyways for it to be.
Yeah, and the good, better, best business model, you can pick how many documents you want to be able to have reviewed. And, but I think just if we got nothing more than just consultation, we got it worth, because there's so many times where, like our neighbor, our fence was falling down, like who's responsible, how does that work, who's got to pay for it, you know,
Yeah.
if they're non-responsive, you know, what, how does that work, do you put a lien on the house? So property owners have a lot of more questions sometimes, from contracting,
Yeah.
finishing the job, doing the right thing, to reviewing those contracts, right? HOA stuff,
So
you know,
stuff.
reviewing some of those to see, because those can be really dicey. Yeah, HOAs can be dicey. But you know, I was gonna say, it's really important too that you have a good agent. And so, you know, yeah, in all aspects, a good real estate agent, right? A good financial advisor and a good LegalShield agent, because they can help you pick out the plan that's best for you. Vito can help you pick out the right house. So I do own a franchise through LegalShield. So if you want to work with me directly, I would go to connectwithkai.com. I've been doing this for 24 years, and I can really help you zero in on what plan works for you, because there's 3 personal, 3 business. We have identity theft, we have a home-based business supplement, a gun owner's plan, a rideshare plan. Like, we have a little bit of something for everybody. And you really want to work with a good agent that not only knows the programs, but also knows the attorneys. So reach out and like, hey, what happened in this situation? We need to investigate, right? And a lot of times people don't like what the law says, and I can't fix that. But I can fix a lot of other things, but that I can't fix,
That's
right?
funny.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
again, your email is connect with Kai, CONNECT with
That's my
WI.
website. So my connectwithkai.com, you can book an appointment there. You can watch a video on LegalShield. You can see where I network. You can see my phone number, my social. Everything that you would kind of need to know about me would be on connectwithkai, KAI.com. And then my email would just be my name, full name, at gmail.com. So Kai Deering at Gmail.
Okay, we'll be sure to get that out too.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to follow up. Right on.
You guys, I love what you're up to. Thank you for doing this. I mean, this is so valuable to have resources, information, and taboo topics that you're just not getting anywhere else.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right back at you. What a great service.
Spread the word, and we'll spread your word out and make sure that we get people to know about you more. And
Yeah, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share. I'm really on a mission to make sure that everybody's protected and knows what their rights are and has access when they need it. So just appreciate you helping me get the word out.
anytime you talk on and do this, please let us know.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you. I'll send you the recording.
Thank